It wasn't a drill, nor a paper warning. It was the crack of an explosion in the heart of the Caribbean. In a single instant, a speeding boat erupted into flames as American firepower rained down from above. That was the message President Donald Trump wanted the world to see. The United States had chosen to strike directly at a drug route believed to originate in Venezuela. As Washington ringed the seas with nuclear submarines, warships, and thousands of Marines, Caracas answered in kind, deploying naval drones and patrol ships into the waters. So was this merely a show of force, or the opening salvo of a new cycle of conflict in the Western Hemisphere? According to the White House announcement, U.S. forces had just destroyed a vessel allegedly carrying narcotics from Venezuela, killing 11 men described as members of the notorious gang Tren de Aragua. President Trump, standing firmly before the cameras, declared, "Moments ago, we struck a drug boat, loaded with drugs, and there will be many more strikes to come because narcotics have been pouring into the United States for years. Their source is Venezuela." Soon after, Trump shared drone footage online showing the high-speed boat suddenly explode before sinking into the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. The images spread worldwide as an unmistakable message. Washington was no longer issuing warnings. It was pulling the trigger. Trump framed the attack not as a routine anti-smuggling mission, but as a direct assault on a transnational extremist organization. U.S. officials have linked Tren de Aragua, a name associated with kidnapping, extortion, robbery, and large-scale narcotics trafficking, to the Maduro government. Caracas denies the charge, insisting it dismantled the group in a 2023 military campaign. Washington clearly did not believe it. Instead of seizing the drugs or capturing suspects to present evidence, the U.S. military opted for instant annihilation, a tactic more often seen in counterterrorism campaigns in the Middle East than in anti-smuggling operations. Senator Marco Rubio later suggested the shipment might have been headed to Trinidad or another Caribbean nation before reaching U.S. shores. Analysts note the use of UAVs alongside naval assets signals a well-prepared operation, part of a broader pressure campaign weeks in the making. Yet critics warn that sinking the boat outright, without arrests or judicial process, may violate international law, escalate tensions, and transform what should be a criminal enforcement matter into a military confrontation between two nations. This clash comes just weeks after Washington boosted its Caribbean presence. 7 U.S. warships, including the USS San Antonio, USS Osama, and USS Fort Lauderdale, a nuclear attack submarine, and more than 4,500 sailors and Marines. These vessels carry Tomahawk missiles, attack helicopters, and amphibious landing craft, while P-8 surveillance aircraft patrol the skies relentlessly. In short, the United States has erected a steel barrier to choke off every maritime artery used by South American cartels. Caracas, in turn, accuses Washington of provocation. President Nicolas Maduro told reporters the U.S. deployment represents the gravest threat to Venezuela in a century, pointing to 8 U.S. warships with over 1,200 missiles and a nuclear submarine aimed at his country. He claims 8 million Venezuelans have joined reserve forces ready to defend national waters, while the government escalates its own coastal patrols. His defiance was not only a message to Washington, but also a rallying cry to Venezuelans enduring economic collapse, hyperinflation, and social turmoil. The Caribbean grows hotter by the day. For the U.S., The narcotics trade is framed as a direct threat to national security and the lives of millions of Americans. For Venezuela, Washington is using drug interdiction as a pretext for interference and an assault on sovereignty. The crisis escalated further on March 26th, when Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez announced that Venezuela had deployed warships and UAVs to patrol its Caribbean coast, placing larger vessels on high alert in the north. The move underscored Caracas's readiness to respond to U.S. pressure. Trump, since his first term, had targeted Venezuela with maximum pressure, crippling oil sanctions and regime change strategies. None succeeded. Back in the White House, he has again branded Maduro as leader of a criminal extremist network, raised the bounty on evidence against him to $50 million, and framed Venezuela as a narco-state. Maduro dismisses these charges as pretexts for intervention and an attempted coup against a legitimate government. Skeptics see a familiar script. They recall 2003, when Secretary of State Colin Powell held up a vial of white powder at the UN's Security Council, calling it proof of Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. The claim, repeated 17 times, provided cover for war, yet no such weapons were ever found. The vial, it turned out, contained harmless powder. Powell later admitted it was the darkest stain of his career, while Iraq lost hundreds of thousands of lives. Now, as Trump asserts that Iran is close to a nuclear bomb and Israel launches airstrikes without UN approval or international consensus, critics warn of the same reckless pattern. Senator Mark Warner has called such foreign policy irresponsible and incomprehensible. But for Trump, the rules are his to rewrite at will. So when Washington positions warships off Venezuela and repeatedly paints Maduro as the head of an extremist cartel, who can guarantee that the Iraq scenario won't repeat itself? The U.S. once turned a vial of salt into a weapon of mass destruction, once ignored intelligence to declare Iran near the bomb. Is it so far-fetched to imagine a narco-terrorist flotilla being conjured to justify strikes against Caracas? The question now looms large. Will Venezuela become the next victim on the list of nations transformed into battlefields on the basis of accusations without proof?